All right, there we go. Back up and running. Oh, wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. So this room is about learning to live with the tarot. And so this room is about discussion and exchanging ideas, and also about book reading. And so the book that I've chosen for our topic of tarot is The Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang. Beautiful book, and I'm just opening it up for the first time. And this beautiful depiction of the tree of life is in here. This is, it's really beautiful. It's amazing. All right, so this room is about learning how to use the tarot for yourself. So if you have any questions in the chat, please, by all means, let them fly. Give me a quick second, everyone. There we go. All right. Well, this was first published in 1983. This book here is a seminal work on the tarot and Kabbalistic viewpoint as well. It combines the two heavily to really get to the basis and the root of where tarot came from in this material world here. All right, so if there are no questions, which there are none, we will get started. And this is going to go on till 8:45, at which time I'll end the room, then restart it, and we'll be doing tarot readings, which I should probably find my deck now. There we go. There's my deck. Whether or not this particular room is wildly successful, it doesn't matter. I'm having a frickin' fantastic day. I'm hitting absolutely all of my points as they come. It's amazing. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. When I wrote this book 20 years ago, it was during a period when serious historical studies of the occult movement and of the wonderful picture book called Tarot were in their infancy. And when, as Dion Fortune commented, scholars were lamentably failing to find the origins of the cards and of the movements which embraced them. Today, however, there have been tremendous strides among academics, and a great many of the early claims about the history of the tarot have been unequivocally shown to be pure nonsense. But the truth about the roots of tarot imagery is actually far more interesting than the various myths surrounding the cards. Over a period of hundreds of years, a set of pictures created as a game in some Italian castle and representing a courtly world as then known was first turned into a device for telling fortunes, and then into a repository for some extraordinary and complex metaphysical principles. In this regard, there's a very interesting parallel between the development of Christianity and that of Buddhism. Both Siddhartha and Jesus, were seekers of truth whose ideas were twisted into formal and complex religions that provided a framework for theocratic societies. Historians understand today that long after the death of the Buddha, Tibetans grafted a Baroque pantheon of gods, demons, and formal practices onto his simple teachings. The same happened with the ideas of Jesus. Even those miracles attributed to Jesus in the Synoptic Gospels have been demonstrated by brilliant scholars at the Claremont School in California to be the embellishment of a zealous Roman writer. In this history, there is certainly a lesson about the tools of inner search available to us. Some, especially Jewish scholars, have been quite hostile toward an attachment of Kabbalistic ideas to the tarot, which is completely understandable. But what we find when we look into the pedigrees of both Christianity and Judaism is a socio-political core and layer upon layer of complex ideologies added by rabbis and theologians. Starting from scratch, organized belief systems are created and may eventually become archetypal paths for inner development. Indeed, Christian and Jewish mystical exercises are profound and effective because they promote a search for simple spiritual principles which transcend cultures. The same may be said for the use of tarot images, although this path, which some criticize as occult in the most negative sense, is quite recent. To these comments, let me add that when I wrote the Kabbalistic Tarot, the utility of relating tarot images to Kabbalistic principles was only beginning to emerge from the supposedly secret teachings of a number of esoteric fraternities, and was not well understood by most people. Today, previously secret uses of the tarot, including the use of tarot cards as gateway into inner worlds, a process which Carl Jung described as active imagination, are becoming more and more common. We are living in a most excellent new era. Okay, Bill and Ted, thank you for that. Welcome. This room is about learning how to use the tarot for yourself. So if you have any questions about that, please let it fly. Otherwise, I'm going to do book reading, but if people choose to interact, that's going to be my primary focus. The purpose of this book is to demonstrate the relationship between the Kabbalah, a time-honored mystical system, and the tarot. To do so is to pointedly disagree with some very great Jewish scholars who state that no such relationship exists. While I have attempted to do this work, what I have attempted to do in this work is to integrate some of the very complex threads of Kabbalistic symbolism and interpretation, emphasizing the relationship of the Tree of Life, the primary symbol of the Kabbalah, and the tarot as taught in the tradition of the Hermetic Kabbalah. I must emphasize that I am not writing on the Hebrew Kabbalah, but on a separate and distinct system also based on Hebrew texts. In my opinion, the Hebrew scholars have mistaken in their perception of late 19th century occult developments as merely a romantic and misunderstood pastiche of mystical Hebrew lore. Holy cow, did I butcher that fucking sentence or what? Let's try that again. In my opinion, the Hebrew scholars have been mistaken in their perception of late 19th century occult developments as merely a romantic and misunderstood pastiche of mystical Hebrew lore. Not perfect, but much better. Moreover, I have attempted to demonstrate that the principles of the Kabbalah are appropriately applied to any ordinary tarot deck. To that end, this work reproduces 4 entire decks, including the Marseille Tarot. Wow, that's cool. The Marseille Tarot is one of the very first tarot decks that we would recognize that was ever invented, somewhere in the early 1300s, I believe. What the heck is going on with my computer? I have no idea what that was all about. That was crazy. That was super crazy. Welcome. This room is about discussion about learning how to use the tarot. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, please, by all means, let them fly in the chat. Human interaction is my primary purpose here. But aside from that, if you guys have no questions, I'm going to continue my reading. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to be doing a tarot reading room here on YouTube and also on TikTok. So if that's what you're here for, just stick with me for another 15 minutes or so, all right? Very little discussion is accorded that work, chosen as a comparison with the more symbolically concise modern decks because it is the most common and popular of the decks, crystallizing the card's early imagery. The Marseille Tarot is a standard deck. The other three decks used here are those related to the 19th century occult fraternity, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Those decks are the Golden Dawn Tarot, the Thoth Tarot, and the Rider-Waite deck. The Rider-Waite deck happens to be the primary deck that I use. I've used it for more than 35 years now. I feel most comfortable. I can use other decks, and I do so, but I feel most at home with my age-old deck. And as you guys start to work with the cards and stuff, you'll form attachments like that. You'll be like, yeah, this is my deck. You know, everything from it, I just feel connected to it, you know. So as you learn and grow, you'll start to feel that connection too. And thank you for the audience again. And if you guys have any questions about learning about the tarot or using the tarot or anything, please put them in the chat there for me. I'm happy to answer. Like I said before, human interaction is my primary focus here. One other deck not shown, but which I recommend very strongly, is that of the late Paul Case and his organization, the Builders of the Adantum. This is a deck to be hand colored by each student. Ooh, I enjoy that. Oh, wow. To be honest with you, that's the first time I've encountered that concept. Coloring your own tarot deck that's drawn and out. That seems fantastic to me. Besides this deck, Case produced some exceptionally good tarot literature, to which I have devoted considerable attention. His correspondence courses on tarot, written more than 40 years ago, are still being distributed. And since distribution is restricted, I must quickly note that I am in no way associated with that organization, having been provided a complete set of his courses by sympathetic friends. Ooh, wow, we're back down to zero again. Cool. Case was a brilliant teacher who must be credited as the first to apply the terms of modern psychology to the cards, an approach very much like that of Carl Jung. I consider Case to be the first great modern scholar on the tarot, unrecognized as such generally because his major works have been available only to corresponding students of the Builders of the Adantum, who are asked that they be kept confidential. I have found his ideas, which have influenced my approach, very profound, but with reservations. I question his dogmatic reliance on gematria, or gematria, Kabbalistic numerology, as well as some of his interpretations of weight symbolism. Moreover, at the time Case was writing, our psychological language was in a state of development, and his courses do not reflect today's more precise terminology. A student must read between the lines, considering 40 years of publications on the occult since Case wrote his courses. A great deal of what Case did not say to his corresponding students has been published explicitly by Regardie, Butler, and others. Such criticism does not apply to his small work entitled The Book of Tokens, written in 1934. If there is one single book which I would recommend, it is that collection of poetic essays on the Hebrew letters. It is a milestone of philosophical literature, showing the tarot to be a key part of the Western mystery tradition. Now, actually, that right there is key insight into how others view the major arcana and what they ascribe to their meanings and impressions and feelings. So, I recognize his use of calling that book a milestone, because that can go a long way to jump-starting your view of the tarot and how you use it. A comment might also be in order here about my frequent reference to the works of Aleister Crowley, considered by many to be one of the 20th century's greatest fiends, and by others to be the torchbearer of the religion of the future. It is very difficult to be objective about Crowley, but in making the attempt, I have been impressed by the profundity of his writings on the tarot. His work remains instructive, despite criticisms which may be leveled against his personal behavior. I suspect that history will view Crowley as very much a representative of the early 20th century, a period which espoused the aesthetic of the avant-garde. What was new and shocking was better, by definition, than what was old. This idea actually underlies all of modern art, music, and literature, which brings us to the artwork that is Aleister Crowley. Right? He's a living piece of performance art. His entire life, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This idea actually underlies all of modern art, music, and literature, not to mention the behavior patterns of the artistic elite of London, Paris, and New York during the 1920s and 30s. Crowley's behavior fits this pattern, as does the very style of his cards, which is essentially cubist, the most important and avant-garde of all styles of modern art during his prime. And see, I don't connect to cubism at all, so I've never leaned toward the top deck at all, and I just still don't. It is important to appreciate this conceptual difference embedded in the Crowley deck versus the others. The Order of the Golden Dawn, from 1888 to 1900, was created at a period when an idea was revered according to its antiquity. Thus, the leaders claim that their order's history traced deep into the past of mankind and invoked the monolithic ideal structure of the gods of Egypt. Crowley, on the other hand, says that a new age has arrived, of which he is not coincidentally, the prophet. Old may be good, but new is better. See, like I said, a living piece of performance art. A masterpiece. A masterpiece. I may well be criticized for staying too close to traditional symbolic lines in this work, particularly since the climate today is one of rather sweeping reorganization of symbol systems. A number of books have recently appeared in which the traditional placement of tarot cards on the Tree of Life has been radically altered, and frankly, there are several keys which I might assign differently were I starting with no prior conceptions about where the cards should be placed. I love YouTube much better than TikTok for this reason right here. But the system, while drawing vitality from gentle modification, does not graciously suffer radical overhaul at the hands of any single individual. It appears intended to develop slowly, each authority incorporating some socially based alteration, making the discipline of greater value to the contemporary society. A system, whether cult, religion, or meditative program, is an access pattern into inner worlds, one agreed upon and strengthened by generations of use. It is a path into the unknown paved with culturally determined, though universally applicable symbols. And within any given school, the symbols may be manipulated and variously applied. Certainly, I have no quarrel with those who have virtually turned the tree of life upside down with their combinations and permutations of ideas. But to do so mitigates the powerful group effort called tradition and potentially creates a new path. Welcome in, viewer. This book is about learning how to, or this room is about learning about living with the tarot. So if you have any questions, please, by all means, let them fly. And within any given school, the symbols may be manipulated and variously applied. Certainly, I have no quarrel with those who have virtually turned the tree of life upside down with their combinations and permutations of idea. But to do so mitigates the powerful group effort called tradition and potentially creates a new path. Expressed in another way, it is the agreement over time on the meaning of a set of symbols which makes a system a path. To this end, I have given only those attributions which are now commonly accepted. This is not to imply that such attributions are immutably correct, rather to suggest that their accepted interlock is of greater immediate utility to the student than some of the many divergencies. In this regard, Gareth Knight makes a profound observation. In his experience of the inner worlds, he describes the workings of a group using the tarot cards as psychic doorways. All right, well, we're going to stop right there because this room is over in 3 minutes, at which point we're going to transition over into a tarot reading room, both here on YouTube and on TikTok. So I will end this stream and then be back on in just a few minutes. All right, so I look forward to seeing you guys then.